The rain fell hard, a steady drum on the marble stones of the cemetery. Thunder rumbled low, hiding somewhere behind heavy gray clouds. Thomas Becket stood alone by the freshly dug grave of his wife, his hands trembling but his face locked in a cold mask. Around him, a crowd of powerful men and women, mostly white, stood silently, their umbrellas barely keeping the rain at bay. Security guards in sharp suits scanned the crowd, ready to act. Suddenly, from the edge of the gathering, a thin figure stepped forward, a young black girl, no older than 11. Her soaked hoodie clung to her small frame, mud streaked her worn shoes, but her eyes held a fierce determination. The crowd barely noticed her, dismissing her as invisible. Then she spoke, her voice clear and sharp against the rain. "Your wife is still alive." The world seemed to freeze. Thomas's jaw tightened, his eyes locked on the girl. A hush fell over the mourners. Security moved quickly, trying to pull her away, calling her troublemaker. But the girl did not back down. She took a step closer, louder this time. "I saw her. She was crying for you." Thomas's breath caught. His anger fought with disbelief. "What game are you playing?" he demanded, his voice low but cutting through the silence. "No game," she said firmly. She was scared, bleeding. "They took her in a van. I know because I was there." The crowd shifted uneasily. Camera flashes popped in the distance. Raindrops slid down expensive coats, mixing with mud splattered on polished shoes. The girl's hands trembled slightly, but her gaze never wavered. Fear, hope, frustration, and disbelief hung thick in the air as Thomas fought to control the storm rising inside him. "Hi, my name is Malik. If you believe stories like this need to be heard, please hit like and subscribe right now. Your support helps us shine a light on real injustice." Thomas left the cemetery in a storm of mixed emotions. The rain had soaked through his expensive coat, but it was nothing compared to the cold not tightening in his chest. Back inside his sprawling mansion, silence wrapped around him like a shroud. The grandeur of marble floors, towering windows, and priceless art could not fill the emptiness that had grown since Elena's disappearance. He paced through halls lined with portraits of happier days. Elena laughing at a summer picnic, her hand in his, her eyes bright with life. But now those memories felt distant, almost unreachable. His fingers brushed a photo frame on the mantel, the glass fog from the lingering dampness on his hands. The image stared back, a woman lost to the sea, or so everyone believed. Outside, the city hummed with its usual pulse, unaware of the billionaire's private grief. But for Maya, the young black girl who had shaken his world, life was a constant fight for survival. She shivered beneath a threadbare blanket in a cramped shelter on the city's edge, where the stench of garbage mingled with the stale air. The shelter buzzed with low voices, but none of them belonged to her. She was alone in a crowd, invisible. Maya's fingers traced the faded embroidery on a small, worn handkerchief, the only piece of Elena she had managed to keep. Memories of that night haunted her, vivid and unrelenting. She had hidden behind dumpsters, watching the van that took Elena away. She had seen the fear, the scars, the desperation. As dawn broke, Thomas sat in his office, the morning light filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows. He stared blankly at reports on his desk, but his mind was elsewhere, on the girl's words, the proof she claimed to hold. His assistant approached cautiously, handing him coffee. "Sir, they think it's a prank." The police refused to investigate. He clenched his jaw. For the first time, he understood the barriers Maya faced. Not just the loss of his wife, but the dismissiveness and prejudice against her voice. The city was a different place for her, one of shadows, silence, and survival. Meanwhile, Maya braved the biting cold outside the shelter. She walked through narrow alleys, eyes sharp for danger. The city's indifference was a weight she carried daily. Children her age ignored her. Adults crossed the street to avoid her. Yet, the fire inside her burned brighter. Later, Thomas arranged for Maya to come to his mansion. She hesitated, stepping into a world of polished floors and hushed whispers. The contrast was staggering, the warmth of the estate clashing with the chill of her reality. As she sat by the fire, wrapped in a borrowed blanket, she met his gaze steady and unflinching. "You brought me hope," Thomas admitted quietly. "I thought I was alone." Maya nodded. "No one listens to kids like me," she said softly. "But I saw what happened, and I won't be silent." Outside, unseen eyes watched from the shadows. A figure in a dark coat snapped a photo, his breath visible in the cold air. "They've made contact," he whispered into a phone. "Prepare for the next move." The storm was far from over. The next morning, Thomas sat in his sleek office, the city skyline stretching beyond the glass walls, but his focus was entirely on Maya's words. His assistant, clearly skeptical, dismissed the girl's claims as fantasy, just a child spinning tales. But Thomas couldn't shake the detail she had shared. The scar on Elena's arm, the delicate necklace with their initials, the fear in her eyes. Those were facts no stranger could know. Security footage from the cemetery showed Maya standing defiantly in the rain. Some guards whispered behind their hands, questioning why she was even there. The racial undertones hung heavy, unspoken yet palpable. Thomas felt a burning anger, not just for Elena's disappearance, but for the world's refusal to listen to someone like Maya. He called for a private meeting. Maya entered the room cautiously, her eyes scanning the opulent surroundings. She was no longer just a lost girl from the streets, but a bearer of secrets that could unravel powerful forces. Thomas looked at her with a mixture of hope and doubt. "Tell me everything you saw," he urged gently. Maya's voice was steady as she recounted the night Elena was taken. The screams, the van, the man with the prosthetic arm who barked orders like a general. She described how Elena struggled, how she kept calling out Thomas's name despite the terror. Each detail painted a vivid picture of a hidden nightmare. Around them, the tension grew. Security questioned Maya's credibility, and a few officers voiced thinly veiled disbelief. "Why trust a homeless child?" one whispered. Thomas slammed his fist on the desk, silencing the room. "Because she knows what we don't," he said firmly. Maya pulled from her pocket the blue handkerchief embroidered with Elena's name. The room fell silent as Thomas took it with trembling hands. This small piece of fabric was a lifeline, a proof that Maya's story was more than just words. But with hope came fear. Threats started arriving. Anonymous calls warning Thomas to drop the search. Maya noticed shadows tailing her steps and strangers lurking near her shelter. The system was pushing back, trying to silence the voice that refused to be ignored. One evening, Maya confronted a police officer who sneered at her claims. "You think anyone cares about the likes of you?" he spat. Maya's fists clenched, but she held her ground. "I'm the only one who does," she said, voice steady despite the sting of humiliation. Meanwhile, Thomas found himself facing a painful truth. The world his wealth had built was blind to the suffering on its streets, especially when it came to someone like Maya. His eyes opened to a harsh reality, the power imbalance, the casual racism, and the invisible walls that kept justice out of reach. Together, they formed an unlikely alliance, a grieving billionaire and a brave black girl bound by a shared purpose. Their journey would take them deep into the city's shadows, where danger lurked and allies were few. But neither was willing to back down. As rain poured outside the mansion's tall windows, Thomas and Maya prepared for the battles ahead. The fight for Elena's freedom had become a fight for truth, justice, and recognition. And in that struggle, the line between protector and fighter blurred. The stakes had never been higher, and the city was watching, whether it was ready or not. If you're still watching, drop a comment below. What would you do in this situation? And don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that matter. Thomas sat quietly in his study, the glow from the fireplace casting flickering shadows on the walls. Maya sat across from him, wrapped in a warm blanket, her eyes steady but filled with a quiet storm. She reached in her pocket and pulled out a small, worn handkerchief, the same one embroidered with Elena's name. It was proof, but it was also a symbol of the fragile hope that had taken root. "You have to know," Maya said softly. "I've been invisible for most of my life. People look past me, ignore me. But this is different." Thomas nodded, feeling the weight of her words settle deep inside. He realized their worlds, though so far apart, were now intertwined. The powerful mansion, the quiet girl from the streets, They were united by a mission that neither could walk away from. That evening, as the rain drummed softly on the windows, a shadow moved in the darkness outside the estate. A man in a long coat, his face obscured, watched their every move through binoculars. He spoke into a hidden earpiece. "They've made contact. Prepare the next phase." Inside, the atmosphere was charged with urgency. Thomas pulled up maps and surveillance photos on his screen, tracing routes and marking locations. Maya pointed out the dock where she had seen Elena taken, describing every detail with unnerving clarity. Her knowledge of the city's back alleys and hidden corners was invaluable. Yet danger lurked at every turn. Anonymous threats began to arrive, calls warning Thomas to abandon the search, cryptic messages left at the mansion gate. Maya's footsteps were followed. A dark SUV tailed her through the city streets. The system they were up against was vast and ruthless. But amidst the fear, trust grew. Thomas no longer saw Maya as a child or a troublemaker. He saw a survivor, a warrior whose courage challenged his own. Their alliance was no longer just about finding Elena. It was about exposing a darkness buried deep within the city's veins. One night, Maya stood at the edge of the estate's grounds, staring out into the stormy night. "They want to silence me," she whispered, "but I won't disappear." Thomas approached silently, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "You won't have to face this alone," he assured her. "We'll fight this together." The next day, they prepared for the risks ahead. Security was tightened, cameras installed, and trusted allies called in. Maya practiced moving through the mansion with stealth, learning to navigate a world so different from the one she knew. The billionaire and the black girl were no longer strangers. Bound by fate and purpose, they stood on the edge of a battle that would test their strength, resilience, and trust. The power had begun to shift, and with it, the fragile hope of justice grew stronger. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside the walls of the estate, a new fire was kindling, a fire that no rain could extinguish. The investigation deepened, but so did the obstacles. Thomas's resources were vast, yet even his wealth couldn't shield Maya from the harsh realities of the city. At the police station, she was met with skepticism and thinly veiled hostility. Officers whispered behind closed doors, questioning why a homeless black girl's story should hold any weight. "You're chasing shadows," one officer sneered, casting a dismissive glance at Maya. But she stood firm, her voice unwavering as she recounted what she saw. The van, the scarred woman, the man with the plastic arm barking orders. Meanwhile, Thomas watched helplessly as the system that promised justice repeatedly failed them. Courtrooms delayed, evidence vanished, and friendly faces turned cold. The casual racism woven into the fabric of the city's institutions became impossible to ignore. It was a silent war, one fought not with guns, but with prejudice and power. Undeterred, Thomas and Maya pushed forward. They visited shadowed docks and abandoned warehouses, places where the city's forgotten whispered their secrets. Maya's knowledge of these hidden spaces guided them, but danger shadowed every step. A black SUV followed them too closely one night. A threatening note left at the estate warned them to stop digging. Maya felt the weight of being both hunted and invisible. Her every move was watched, every word doubted. The gulf between Thomas's world of privilege and her own stark reality was glaring. Yet, this disparity only strengthened their resolve. One evening, after a close call where a man in a dark coat cornered Maya in an alley, Thomas arrived just in time, his security team close behind. The encounter was a chilling reminder of the forces aligned against them, but it also solidified their partnership. No longer a billionaire and a street child, but two warriors united against a common enemy. At the mansion, tensions ran high. Thomas confronted his own complicity in a system that turned a blind eye to people like Maya. His grief for Elena was now entwined with a newfound anger at the city's indifference. Together, they strategized late into the night, piecing together fragments of a conspiracy that stretched far beyond a single disappearance. Every lead uncovered exposed deeper corruption, a network that thrived on silence and invisibility. Maya, once voiceless and unseen, began to emerge as the story's heart. Her courage ignited a spark, turning whispers into a roar. But the risks grew greater. Threats escalated, and the shadowy figures watching from the sidelines prepared their next move. As dawn broke over the city, Thomas and Maya steeled themselves. The fight was far from over, but with each step, they chipped away at the walls of secrecy and prejudice. The search for Elena had become a battle for justice itself, one that would demand everything they had, and more. The night air was thick with tension as Thomas, Maya, and a trusted team made their way to the abandoned facility on the city's outskirts. The building loomed like a dark beast beneath the moonlight, its rusted metal and broken windows a stark contrast to the gleaming towers downtown. Every step forward felt like a descent deeper into danger. Inside, the cold metal floors echoed beneath their feet. Shadows danced along the narrow corridors, hiding secrets and threats alike. Maya moved with quiet confidence, her small frame slipping through the tight spaces with ease. She led them to a locked room sealed with a heavy padlock. Beyond it, the truth waited. With careful precision, Thomas's team disabled the lock, revealing a dimly lit chamber. Chains hung from the walls, and in the center sat a woman, pale, bruised but alive. Elena. Her eyes flickered with recognition and relief as Thomas stepped forward, wrapping her in a protective embrace. But their victory was far from certain. A guard appeared suddenly, gun raised. The room exploded into chaos. Shots rang out, and adrenaline surged through their veins. Maya's quick thinking saved them. She triggered an alarm, creating a distraction that allowed Thomas to shield Elena and the others to overpower their attackers. As police sirens wailed in the distance, the villain's grip began to crumble. The hidden facility was exposed, and with it, a network of corruption rooted in power and prejudice. The city's darkest secrets came to light as the media descended, eager for the story that challenged everything. Thomas stood beside Maya, publicly acknowledging her bravery. "Without her," he said, voice steady despite the chaos, "we would have never found Elena." Maya, once invisible, was now the symbol of courage and resilience. The reunion was emotional. Tears mingled with relief and exhaustion. Elena clung to both Thomas and Maya, her strength slowly returning amid the storm of attention and justice. The villains faced arrest, their plans dismantled piece by piece. The city watched as the truth unfolded, a powerful narrative of race, power, and survival gripping hearts across the nation. Maya's face appeared on every screen, her story inspiring countless others to stand against injustice. In the quiet aftermath, Thomas reflected on the journey, how a young black girl's courage had shattered the silence and brought hope where there was none. Their worlds, once so different, had collided to change the course of many lives. This was not just a rescue. It was a reckoning, and for the first time in a long time, justice felt within reach. The mansion felt different now, warmer, filled with a new kind of light. Elena's recovery was slow but steady, each day bringing small victories. Thomas watched her with a mix of relief and awe, grateful for the second chance fate had given them. Yet, it was Maya who had changed everything, not just by finding Elena, but by transforming their lives. That evening, the family gathered around a large oak table, the soft glow of candles casting dancing shadows on the walls. Maya sat between Thomas and Elena, no longer an outsider, but a welcomed part of their world. The air buzzed with unspoken gratitude and healing. News outlets celebrated Maya's bravery, highlighting her as a beacon of hope and resilience. Stories of her courage spread through communities across the USA, UK, and Canada, inspiring others to speak up against injustice. The once invisible girl had become a powerful voice. Thomas, deeply moved, pledged significant support to shelters and programs helping children like Maya. His grief had turned into a mission, one fueled by justice and change. He gifted Maya a delicate necklace, engraved with a symbol of strength and hope. "You saved us all," he whispered. Maya's smile was quiet but full of pride. The necklace was more than jewelry. It was a promise that her worth was recognized, that she mattered. Outside the mansion, the city carried on, some still blind to the struggles within, others awakening to the call for justice. Maya's story was a reminder that change often begins with the smallest voices daring to be heard. Thomas stood by the window, watching the sun set over the skyline. He knew the battle was far from over. Racism and corruption still lingered in shadows, waiting to be challenged. But tonight, there was peace, a moment to breathe, to hope. Maya joined him silently, her presence steady and reassuring. Together, they faced a future shaped by courage, resilience, and unwavering determination. Sometimes, Thomas said softly, the greatest strength comes from the most unexpected places. And with that, the mansion, once a symbol of loss, became a beacon of hope for a new tomorrow. If this story moved you, give it a thumbs up, share it with someone who cares, and subscribe for more powerful true stories. Let's stand up to racism together. See you in the next video.